looking purely at the future is one way, but I think that with Afrofuturism, there's a way by looking back, you start to glean these jewels of like, saying, that's actually a really interesting path we could take. Interesting, because some of those old resistance techniques are quite interesting, as well as other techniques that relate to performance. It's like I have the capoeira berimbau here, performance, resistance, performance. People talk about it being dance, but it's actually coded, right? It looks like dance on the outside, but it's actually self-defense. It's a passing of knowledge. It's many things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very relevant to, the Black Panther's banner that's hanging from up there. A lot of people don't understand that was not just about radicalism and protest, but it was also about facilitating the needs of a community.
Sure.
And this idea of looking at the past and being able to look forward in a time of that looks like there is no future is very, very radical again. And that has been something that's been with us for a very, very long time. And so I think that's another very, very important lesson that people can take from that. I also, when I look around the room at the art, I love the intersectional, the intersectionality between kind of different worlds. You see kind of coming together, kind of cultural, either different worlds or maybe cultural contents within a world, right? And so you're inhabiting, these different worlds, through your art in this single space. And so I'm interested in hearing if you can give us like the pilot's view, from 35,000 feet, so to speak, about what we're surrounded by here.
Sure.
What are we flying in, so to
Sure.
in this exhibition?
One of the catalysts for what we were just actually having our conversation about old ways of maybe knowing or knowledge, and that being a way to kind of cover ways of the future. So for me, a lot of the catalysts for a lot of the work start with African American folklore. It's like even this particular piece, it's Brer Gator talking, it's trash is what it's doing. And so they start with a very kind of traditional kind of root of like kind of the folk tale, and then I start to build on the elements that become obviously part of the personal expression. And so there becomes a very kind of almost an automatic surrealist way of working where I kind of build from maybe a particular very loose idea. The story of how Brer Gator got his skin. Why is he in that particular skin? And then I start to go further and start to develop the narrative that I work with. And what you guys are looking at is actually part of a very, very large kind of narrative where I'm very interested in creating a new Black mythology. Seeing these Black bodies in weird architectural spaces like in these chalkboards where it could be another world, could be another dimension. But the Black body in these places that we maybe don't normally see it, or we don't even know quite where this place is shifting between what could be maybe present day, it could be past, it could be speculative futures, it could be speculative pasts. And I like the idea of using the loose framework of these African American folktales, but because they're so old, I also get to play with that, the fabric of that. I get to twist it and mold it whatever way I want to. And again, maybe it is that same kind of Afrofuturist lens of like now, because I could play with that traditional thing, I could then now stretch it into all these really different new intonations, okay, to make it kind of work for a new audience. Because I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. These are narrative paintings. So again, this is this new Black mythology I'm trying to explain to you. Okay? That's why it's partly on these chalkboards, because there's a need for you to want to kind of learn and kind of know this. So that was kind of part of the idea, was that like, if I'm going to be putting this new narrative out there, there has to be a reason why you should know it. And again, thinking about kind of found objects, or the power that objects have when you encounter them, thinking about the really old tool that you learned with, which is a chalkboard. So when you encounter these, again, the idea was that when you encounter these things, that should I know this? Was I sleeping in class when this kind of happened? So that was kind of very much part of the idea to get the dialogue starting. And I think then once you kind of got in there, I really wanted to kind of unfold it in a little bit of a slower way, where you can get sucked into looking at the paint, kind of the lusciousness of the surface, but also to wondering, who are these cats? Looking at the detailing, kind of getting lost. But in those same moments, things start to break down. they start to disappear back into the chalkboard. Other moments, things are coming into more fuller kind of form. So I wanted to also have a sense of movement with these. And one of the conversations I had earlier today was talking about how there is so much new information coming in about the African diaspora every week, every month, that the narratives that we thought we knew keep shifting and changing. So part of the idea was with these is to keep the drawing and the painting very open, because the paint corner to corner seemed too solid. It seemed like locking history like this, cement. In reality, when I encounter African American culture, literally moving and shifting. Literally, just all the time. And now that we have this influx of more information, what our brothers are doing in Honduras, what they're doing in Brazil, all that stuff is making the narratives move and shift like this. So the drawing kind of helps to keep a movement. So that was one of the things I was striving for, was kind of have a bit of movement, but to also reflect that in what you're looking at, is that even my stories, even though they're my own invented stories, that they're shifting and moving. Because as I'm painting, I'm also responding to all this influx of new information. Plus, there's the need for personal expression, right? This kind of personal path that I'm carving.
Yeah, and I think you've captured that. And to me, there's so much narrative in the chalkboard, right? Not just in this room, but really kind of thinking about it in terms of the American experience. That's something I would really, like to kind of come back to at some point, maybe even in writing, to kind of hear you go deeper into that. But not tonight. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to check in with Elizabeth to see if we need to shift to our next step. And that is, again, referencing the large desk in the installation in the middle of the room. That the first conversation, Nyame, that you and I had, we were standing at that desk, and I commented on what a kind of profound perspective it was, kind of looking from your installation into the next room at Toyin's exhibition, with your work in the foreground of that. And so I want to hear you talk about the kindredness or the interconnections, or even the disconnection, if you wish, that you find with your work in relationships to the rest of the exhibitions here.
Yeah, one of the things that was really nice is when I was setting up the exhibition, I got a chance to talk to Toyin a little bit. And it was a first time meeting, and it was really funny, I think, to me and her, that the palettes were so similar. That the color schemes are really quite similar with the work. And then we also started talking. We had a love and a passion for science fiction. And so I think that, again, obviously most people that like science fiction, you're already up and ready for new stories. You're like, where's the new story? Where's it at? So her being a figurative painter and also a storyteller, being a narrative painter, the connection is, again, she's totally invented. Speculative, it's all invented. That Sultan doesn't exist, but she wrote it all the way to the edge. I mean, she's like the paintings are on loan to MoAD from King Sultan, X, Y, Z, and so I was like, wow, that's great. Like, she played it all the way to the hill. And also the idea that the conceptual nature of her work is showing, and that's kind of funny, the concept is a super wealthy black family, African family, that you just don't even know about. They've been draped in wealth for decades, and you just didn't know. That's crazy. That's a trip. Because that's the concept. It's almost and I'm just going to give a nod to this, is that I have students work in the exhibition, and one of my students here is Sako, who's here, and one of the things I wanted to say is she actually has a piece here. And one of the things that she created a piece for, along with my class, was responding to mundane Afrofuturism. And the author was basically saying, like, it's cool to have like mutants and flying pyramids. That's cool, but what about the bioengineer? What about the black astronaut? That's pretty radical. It's like, man, that's true. That's very, very true. And so the reality is, when I think about Toyin's work, it's doing the same thing. It's a pretty radical idea, but it's actually not. Right? We have to imagine our space, this imagined super wealth. But we see ourselves in popular culture with hip hop. I put rims on my four-wheeler. I got like a chain that's just like so heavy, it's like